Okay. Take two. Yeah, I did this once already, and I deleted it because it ran on for a long time, and I think I don't know, I'm getting good or better at this or not. I'll leave that up to you people. Every now and then, I'll run across something at a bookshelf that uh, I just can't pass up. And it's not because it's a new game system, but it's what it can offer to a multitude of game systems. In this case, I was able to pick up a while back this book called The Ultimate Equipment Guide. It's a supplementary rule book number 3, implying that there's more of them, based for the D20 system. I got it on the discount shelf for 15 bucks, 14.99. It looks brand new, but I know that it's not new. It's an older book. It was published in the late 90s, early 2000s. What was it? 2002 by Mongoose Publishing. And I have a number of books like this. I have an Arms and Equipment Guide for Dungeons and Dragons 2.0. I have most of the source books and modules in Middle Earth. The MERP system come with sub chapters of this stuff. I have probably a half dozen or a dozen of these equipment guides, right? And every one of them has value. Every now and then I run across one that has even more than the average, and this is one of those. I like it. It has a lot of different information, and I can't I could spend an hour going over this and breaking it down. I think I'm going to do this not by the hour, but by the segment over a number of videos, if you will. Um, Starting with food, drink, herbs, drugs, and herbs. The I don't know how many times I've had players ask me exactly what are trail rations, or why do I have to worry about this sort of thing? And unless you can pull it up out of your whatever, or you've got another source book that gives you the information, you either ad lib it or you play it down. And sometimes it's nice to be able, for your own reference material, if nothing else, to go back and go, what exactly are trail rations? And what's the difference between trail rations and universal rations, which is new to me? The explanations and the definitions are in here. The costs are in here. The special advantages. When I was reading the entry under universal rations, it something tricked on me that I thought, oh, this is something interesting or a little dirty pool for a GM to have. And one of the differences between the two is trail rations include, it says dry, higher energy foods suitable for travel, such as jerky, dried fruit, hardtack, and nuts. Trail rations, trail mix, right? The same stuff we, backpackers and stuff would take out in the woods. Universal rations is more of, is some sort of thick strips like dried beef, but not necessarily. And one of the advantages is because of the way it's processed, it doesn't give you that jerky smell. And as a GM, you could have a nuisance animal such as a bear keep following a party for a while and terrorizing them in the middle of the night as it tries to root through their food supplies looking for that beef jerky that it keeps smelling. Why does that bear keep showing up? Who's feeding the bear? You feeding the bear? What is this bear? I thought we run that thing off. Unless you got somebody as a animal lover and or a druid on board, and then you might have some find yourself a useful temporary companion. Anyway, it's the information's here, and it's nice being able to have it at my fingertips. And then we got things like sleepy tea, and they even go as far as just sheep and chickens and pigs. I mean, it doesn't give you a lot of information. The entry for pig, a species of animal raised for its meat. Right? Dur. Uh, then you got the herbal recipes, and it goes into some quite a few actually. Some I've heard of before, some I have not. I've known one or two players over the years to actually get their hands on a real world book on this subject because they wanted to incorporate some of this organic healing and magical simulated magical abilities that you can get from plants and herbs by ingesting or brewing or whatever and however. And I've always encouraged that sort of thing because it also encourages the use of some of those off, one-off skill sets that tend to get ignored. Like the knowledge. You got a number of knowledge slots that people tend to not utilize. Things like the actual heal. I have a like I said, I'm a big fan of those skills for a reason, and having my player characters utilize those skills whenever possible, even if they have a 0. My argument is your skills get better over time, just because you're getting older and wiser. So you have that modifier based off of whatever stat it's attached to. If nothing else, you may have 0 in your slot from points you put there yourself. But if you've got a +2 modifier from your wisdom or your constitution and it applies, then that applies, because that's what the rules say. At least that's the way I've interpreted the rules to say. Anyway, so we go into things like that. You've got basically, and I could, that's the sad part, is like the first entry I tried to do this, it ran on because I tried to point out that there's so many different things and actually discuss them, and I bogged down. Nice cream to help you darken your skin. You want to know how to camouflage yourself. Substance here for using for dealing with bruises and sore muscles, light damage, things to help you generate influence over other people, help your voice sound better, ways to make you less palatable to other people, make certain types of undead or creatures avoid you if they can help it. A subject, here's a candy that, when consumed, will give you a +2 bonus to your constitution, endure extreme exertion without tiring for about 30 minutes. Then you're wore out. And we got incense. Now we got a whole section on herbs, and we get into a number of pages showing pictures of these things, and that most of them have multiple possible uses. Just to pick one here, we'll say Belladonna, the deadly nightshade, Belladonna atrapa belladonna, or however it's pronounced. Sorry about my poor, Latin. Right. I got that right the first time without having to think about it. That's what I get. Thick, fleshy root, pale white color, blah, blah, blah. This deadly plant is also uncommon, requires a DC of 26 to find. And you have 3 entries, so depending on how high your DC is, it allows you to determine what things you can use it for. Manufacturing ingested poison, cures lanthropy. Can't pronounce the word, but poisons the character in the process, see above, and protection from evil for 4 rounds. So, if you DC 26, you basically make a ingested poison. DC 30, you can cure, lanthropy, but in the process, poison the person you're curing, and hope they don't croak from it. And DC 34 is protection from evil for 4 rounds. So, and it tells you that a single dose is worth 100 gold pieces. That's another subject on a sidebar. I've had a couple players over the years supplement their income by this. At the end of each day's travel, the wizard sits down and studies his or her books. The cleric goes through whatever rituals the cleric goes through. And then I've had fighters and rogues sometimes, the rangers, the druids, where they'll spend an hour foraging and hunting, or in this case, looking for this sort of stuff. Because if I can find this exotic material and I'm successful at getting a dose or 2, I can either figure out how to, using alchemical, or just the old wives' tale version of how to prepare this stuff for using it in our day-to-day needs, or the player will pocket and store it, and then when he gets to town, sell it, because there's always a big enough town will always have a demand for these things. And if there's value, and most of them are in the tens of 20s of gold pieces. So over a couple weeks of adventure, the guy, the character in question, might have generated a couple thousand gold pieces by doing this without, in his downtime. Just a thought. Just a thought. So, like I said, these things are a useful tool both for the player and the GM, for the storyteller, because it gives you a lot of pre-generated material that you don't necessarily have to envision on your own. It also gives you, if you're looking at creative uses, if you will, of taking something that somebody else has created and rewording it for your game world so it fits what you need without you having to go through a whole lot of effort of coming up with one out of the blue. And I've also tried to keep notebooks over the years to some moderate levels of success. Whenever we've encountered these things in other game systems, I'll write them into my little encyclopedia, what have you, or into stuff that we've concocted ourselves or I've invented. That way I could continue to use it in other games, because everything we create is a library or inventory of additional source material for future games, for gaming design and or play. Something to consider. Lots of good stuff in here. Too much to cover it in one go. So I think I will try to touch on a few of these different chapters over the next few videos. I hope you enjoy them, and if you do, click on the like, subscribe, tell your friends. If you don't like them, tell your friends to come ridicule me, laugh at the fat man, whatever it takes. It's all good.